Good morning and welcome to Friday's edition of TVC Breakfast. Thank God it's Friday. I'm not known for saying this, but I'm saying it today again. My name is Etoma Edu.
And it was good you said it. Good morning, Nigeria and the rest of the world. Thank you for joining us. I'm Veronica Danny Boy.
Absolutely, it's the last day of the week for the working ones.
Yeah.
Because tomorrow work still
continues.
I'm Ibrahim Shita. Thank you so much for joining us. We have an array of things to talk about on the show this morning. Veronica,
of course.
good morning.
Good morning. I want to say happy International Day of the Boy Child.
Of the boy child?
Yes,
Oh,
today
boy.
is
Why
the
did
day
I
of
think
the
you were
boy
going to
child.
say Happy International Day for the women again?
I would have said again.
No, but that's why I decided to talk about it.
Nice.
Because often,
Thank you.
you say you guys are men, but then the men were once boys.
Yeah.
when men were boys.
When they were boys, it reminds me of Boys to Men too.
Of course, and then we have children. So of course
That's
we must,
right.
Celebrate
That's
the boy
right.
child because we don't talk about them often. But we just want to touch that and ensure that, of course, we keep them in mind, even though we don't celebrate them as regularly as possible. But like we have rightly told you, we have an array of issues. Talk about JAM, talk about security, talk about workplace wellness, and an array of issues. And then we are also going to look at stories on the pages of the newspapers, the FCT brief, and then stories that are trending now in the course of the program. But let's begin with the story where the National Bureau of Statistics says Nigeria's headline inflation rate eased to 23.71% in April 2025. The NBS disclosed this in its Consumer Price Index and Inflation Report for April 2025 in Abuja. According to the Bureau's report, the headline inflation showed a decrease of 0.52% compared to the 24.23% recorded in March 2025. On a month-on-month basis, the headline inflation rate in April 2025 stands at 1.86%, which was 2.04% lower than the rate recorded in March at 3.90%. The report shows an increase in the headline index for April, which was attributed to the increase in some items in the basket of goods and services at the divisional level. The Bureau said three major contributors to the headline inflation were food and non-alcoholic beverages at 9.49%, restaurants and accommodation services at 3.06%, and transport at 2.53%. Food inflation rate in April declined to 21.26% on a year-on-year basis. The report attributed the reduction in average prices of items such as maize, flour, wheat, grain, okra, dried yam flour, soya beans, rice, bambara beans, brown beans, amongst others. As much as this might seem as good news to the ears of Nigerians, they are saying that how do we sustain this? Even experts are talking about the sustenance of the reduction as against we just celebrating it and talking about it, that we achieved this for a particular month. But how do we ensure that it runs through and even see further reduction in prices so that the average Nigerian can access or get more food on their table? Because right now what people are doing is more about survival as against eating quality food, talking about balanced diet. And then you see that there is still an increase in the terms of going to restaurants, accommodation, and transportation. And this also contributes to the prices of the food itself. Etoma.
Yes. Food was identified, that's the decrease in pricing of food was identified as one of the major factors for this achievement. And when we want to look at what Mr. President is doing, right now we're talking about employing forest guards and all that, is to ensure that our farmers can go to farm and produce more food. Now, if we can produce more food, it definitely will affect the inflation rate positively. So we will see a dip. There are other policies that Mr. President has put together that is quite good, that is helping. For example, let's look at what the central bank is doing to ensure that the naira to dollar rate is stabilized or even getting the naira stronger in the market. Now, if we can reduce how much naira we have to spend to get a dollar, that will also help. So the government is doing the right thing, and as you said earlier on, we just pray we can sustain it.
Yeah, interesting. As much as we are having forest guards, like he mentioned, to go into the forest, of course, we have often spoken about transportation of these goods from different parts of the country to the other markets. Talk about Lagos, for instance. We have to wait for food from the north to get to this point, and then we see that there's an increase in price and even a drop in quality at the end of the day. Yes, we know that even the government introduced CNG vehicles to addressing transportation, but how does that address the matters of transportation of food items? Because most of these trucks are not CNG vehicles.
Yeah, oftentimes you talk about inflation whenever it goes up. Now that it seems to be coming down, because even the World Bank forecast made, the forecast just about a few days ago, that it should decline to or slow down to 22.1%, but then we're not there yet because it's just 23.71%. But why is it very important? You'd raised the issue of forest guards, you talked about food prices, transportation. I believe that the slow inflation rate should also impact on them. And the bottom line is, how are we also ready? Because sometimes when we go to buy fuel, it comes down. Dangote refinery, Dangote petrol, slash the price of petrol. When people buy, at lower price, they still maintain the fare that they charge the commuters. This is not fair on our own side. So how do we welcome it? And another thing is the fact that the policy impact is also being felt because the Central Bank of Nigeria is doing so much, the monetary policy and all of that, and we're beginning to feel that. And this would also help in investors' confidence, both locally and foreign, because one thing is, when you see that the inflation is coming down, the noise about it is also, simmering down. You want to, add more confidence to it. But the bigger picture is that 23.71% of inflation is still very high.
It is.
You want to see it.
That's why we're looking at further drop and all of that. Why some persons sustain the prices on the goods and services is because there are other issues that they have to address. Talk about the buying spare parts for their vehicles, which is still high, on the high side. Those that are transporting food items, they pay levies as they transport these food items. So it's not just because they want to sustain, or maintain certain prices.
Effect. Everyone needs to play their part.
I'm only trying to explain it so that people understand. People understand. Because sometimes until you wear the shoes, you do not understand the challenges these persons face. Some people's goods, they stop them if they don't pay those levies. And you know what happens? Some of the goods get spoiled because of the delays in getting here.
But all of these issues have always been there.
The issues are there. We are saying, bottom line for me is, let's have a holistic approach to addressing this matter. If we are saying we want to sustain these matters, we want to address, we want it to have a further reduction, and then it can impact lives. Nigerians, at the end of the day, are able to afford any food that they want on their table.